Would that person mind just identifying themselves for the meeting minutes? Okay, I guess not. So, it looks like Herb just got here as well via phone. So let's, Jenna, are we expecting anyone else, do you know?
I think everybody except for, I didn't hear from Peter or Jason.
You didn't hear from them at all, whether they were attending the meeting?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll call to order at 6:03. And I will share a flag. Anyone wishing to do so, Tim Wiles will lead in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tim. Pull up my agenda. Get right into it. So we did have the public hearing on the budget from 5:30 to about 5:48 or 9. I'm not aware of any members of the public participating, but we do have that recorded. Should anyone or one of our board members either wish to see it at a later date in the future. Luann, is there any public input?
Hi, Caitlin and everyone. No, there is no public input at this time.
Thank you. We'll check back again at agenda item M. So construction update with BRMA and Turner.
Share my screen.
All right, thanks, Megan.
Typical update for the month. Let Kirk kick it off with what construction has been completed and what we're anticipating in the next few weeks.
Good evening, all. Addition A, or area, the new addition, area A. Roof's complete, skylights installed, exterior walls are all complete. Obviously, the slab on grade is complete because we're walking on it. Ductwork, HVAC ductwork is in its final motion to be installed. Framing is all complete. All the in-wall, what we call mechanical, electrical, and plumbing is complete. All the exterior doors are installed. Fire protections, believe today they finished dropping the fire protection sprinkler heads. All the sheetrock and taping and finishing is complete. Paint is in its final stages of touch-up and final coats. Ceiling grid is complete, and we're looking at starting to install tiles. Exterior siding was delivered for this building yesterday evening, and they started, obviously, with the weather today. Most of it will start being installed tomorrow. That is the new area addition. Area B, the collection area. Framing and in-wall roughing is complete. Ceiling, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, your MEPs, are done in the ceiling and it's inspected. Framing is complete. Sheetrock is installed. All the soffit details are complete. Paint work started in 3/8 and they're just did the final cleaning today. So any touch-up or finishes from the walkthroughs will begin tomorrow. Ceiling is complete. Fireplace is installed. Fireplace tile is complete. All the floor leveling is installed. All the carpet is now installed in that whole area that's labeled in B. And then the moving company is scheduled to begin moving books from area F and the Helderberg room into their final spots in area B. Area D1, we're calling a part of the admin area, which is what circulation was in. Demolition is pretty much, as of today, complete and done with. They're starting some HVAC and they're starting the framing in that area. Area D, the unisex and staff bathrooms, those are completed and turned over to the library, so I unhighlighted those areas. Area D1, staff restrooms, which were the areas in pink. They are completely demoed and in-wall rough-ins have commenced. Some testing was already done on the plumbing. Area C, all the framing is complete and wall rough-ins complete. All the finishing sheetrock is all done. All above ceiling work is done. Inspection was completed. Ceiling grid complete. Casework has all been installed. Floor leveling is complete. Finishes are complete. Punch list walk has been done, and they're putting the finishing touches on that area, the main office areas, for a turnover to the library a day next week. Area 3, which is your alt sprinkler room, that area is complete. Flooring, interior walls, the only thing that needs is the siding that matches the same siding as area A. That is a full construction update for interior of the building.
Kirk, I don't know if it would be, somebody should do this. I don't know. And I'm thinking it should be you rather than Megan, but I might not know the disciplines as well as I should. Could you talk a little bit about what comes next? Because, you know, so much has been done. It sounds like we're nearly complete, but what we're completing is moving out of what you might call phase 1 and into phase 2, if you will. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So areas A, B, and C are the ones that were being turned over and completed first. Area C1, which is in blue, and area F are the next sections that begin. Obviously, the northern part of those offices in area F is currently where the PPS staff is housed. So once we finish off area B and the new PPS offices, they will be moving over to that location, which will then allow us to start doing the finished demo work, some walls getting removed, some doors get relocated, and then complete all the new, HVAC, electrical upgrades, data upgrades in that area, along with fire sprinkler, painting, and finishing of that area F.
And floor leveling too, right?
Floor leveling is after all that, yes. We do most of that work, and then floor leveling, just like in the other ones, that tends to be the last thing that happens before we do the finished punch list and then turn it over to you guys. Also, the current Helderberg room, which doesn't show any main construction work, but that does get fire protection. That's going to start as soon as the books are moved out of there. Hopefully next week, so the following week, I believe, is the 26th. Obviously, as all this stuff is going on, the main focus is the construction update is what's going on here, but we had a lot of site upgrades that changed, and that's a later drawing that would come down and show you guys what's going on.
Okay.
So Kirk included a few photos for us. So this is one in the addition looking north out towards the new parking lot area. Ceilings aren't in this photo, but they're starting over here. This is an area B looking towards our new fireplace area, looking east towards the addition. Got one of the site, the new parking lot work underway. Site drawing for Kirk to do the site work update.
So currently right now, if you were to see the proposed building addition, that area in blue on the south and east of that area has been, some drainage has been added. That area has been prepped for us to start installing the finished siding of the addition. All the drainage coming off of area A, the addition, the new grinder pump, and a lot of that retaining wall that was in that top picture is completed. Once that's all done, installing the siding, they'll then go back and regrade all that area as a finished grade. Some of this topsoil has been offloaded into there. The new parking lot area, as you can see, has been started to be stripped down to what we call subgrade, so that we can start building that back up with all the proper sub-based drainage and then final porous pavement. So those yellow lines are going to be, someone's got some feedback.
Guys, please mute your lines. Thank you.
So those yellow lines are going to be the underground utilities that are going to be running for the new lights for the library parking lot. There is a new island that gets installed. So basically, if you look at that drawing, the area in blue is what we're currently working on right now. The next part of the site work would then move over into the EEP, or the Eastern existing parking lot. That's a new island and some utilities that go in there. And then we'll finish off on the western existing parking lot, which is that like bluish gray color. Those two areas have not started yet.
Any questions about what's completed or what's upcoming in the next few weeks?
Megan, I hate to do this to you. Could you go back to slide 1 for a sec?
Of course.
Thanks. So out of curiosity, just looking at this bottom table, the phasing plan, I thought, man, August 2021 looks like the last date that's on there, and I know that's of course an estimate. But I looked at a draft project timeline that we received from Paul Mays in May 2019. And that has us in October 2022 closing out the project, and in July 2022 being finished. So a lot of people talk about the lost year of COVID, but for the Guilderland Library, in terms of our construction, it has been a year gained, and I could not be more pleased with that change in timeline and the work that you guys have been able to get done. Really just incredible, especially when you see the pictures, and I am so looking forward to that opening. So that being said, Megan, excellent work, and I'm very happy, and please continue with the thing you want to ask us, our next bit.
Well, great. Well, I'm glad everyone is pleased. We are continuing to stay on schedule. Right now, the contractors all have a substantial completion date for the project overall for the end of August 31st, which means that there still will be on site for probably a few weeks after that. If there's any outstanding punch list items that need to get resolved, there's closeout paperwork and other minutia, but in general, everything's on target for you guys to be fully functional in the fall. So it's very exciting. So we are always happy to report each month that you are on schedule. And in terms of budget, there hasn't been any substantial changes or revelations this month. So we continue to be on budget. We've paid out contractors again, so our construction hard costs continue to track accordingly. So we've now paid out $3,331,000 or $31,048.92. Our project soft costs similarly have gone up to $1,149,027.94. We're doing the purchase orders now for our furniture, fittings, and equipment purchases. So we've been issuing purchase orders, but we haven't paid anything out on this line item yet. Our technology line item, we have started work and gone under contract for a number of technology amenities. So we've spent or allocated $193,796.45 for that line item. And for miscellaneous direct expenditures, we have spent $20,980 so far. So we continue to follow along with the budget that we established as we started the construction phase of this. And we continue to look very good. We did board meetings look at some site improvements to our removals for the site. One is we're going to need to remove this existing tree. We had hoped to save it because of its grand stature, but as you can see, the retaining wall is just going to come too close to it to not damage its root system. And we'd hate to put you in a position where you have a new finished site and parking lot, and then you need to take a tree out later, which will be much more cumbersome. So the committee approved taking that tree out at the end of this week. And the committee also approved the demolition of the small shed that you may never have noticed on the parking on the parcel of land that you had acquired a few years ago because it was covered in vines as the roofing came in. But knowing that we're clearing the spot and the parking lot is going to give you more views, we thought it was the right time to remove that shed. And it does have some hazardous materials in it, so it's going to be abated properly following all the terms and conditions of the Department of Labor. But we've got that well in hand. Got the right design consultants on board to do the drawings and the submission. So those were the two removal things, and then we added a few other amenities for the site. With this retaining wall, we need to have a fence on top of it everywhere for protection for pedestrians. We'd called for a chain link fence, but knowing that we are under budget, the contractor.
Megan, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Sean, can you mute everyone but Megan, please? Folks, if you can't manually mute yourselves when you're not speaking, we'll have Sean do it. Just remember to take yourselves off mute when you do have questions. Thank you.
Sorry. So the committee approved upgrading our fencing along the 3 areas of retaining wall to a metal aluminum fence rather than the chain link, which will look a lot nicer. Just to recap, we have retaining walls because we've adjusted the grading on this new lot. So we have retaining walls along Western Ave at the transition between the existing lot and the upper parking lot, and then along the southern border of the parking lot as it steps down towards the addition. So we upgraded our fencing. We've also approved trenching out to the existing site sign to run new power and data to that location. The power has been a problem out there. So we're taking this opportunity while there's so much construction going on in the parking lot and for site lighting and such to get new power and data to the site sign. We've also added new concrete sidewalks at the Helderberg end of the building, at Helderberg room end of the building, so that those 2 exits out of the Helderberg room will now have a sidewalk, and then a new sidewalk will connect those 2 exits and the exit hallway to Mercy Care. So where the blue lines are, we'll have new concrete sidewalks there. We also added some additional landscaping so we can have some more decorative items and replace some trees that were removed during the demolition portion of our work. So got like some feature plantings by that glassy corner in the addition so that you can be engaged with the exterior since we've got those great windows. I think that was all of our site improvements. So as a quick summary, previously we had a total of $251,000 or $251,531, 84 in change orders. We've now added an additional $68,197.35 in site improvements. And we had 2 small plumbing change orders this month as well to replace the existing janitor sink and install a new drinking fountain. So our current construction contingency balance is $75,420.20, which is all in keeping with our overall construction budget. And then there's one other site improvement we wanted to review with you folks. As you know, we're doing a lot of changes to the existing parking lot as Kirk was reviewing in our site side. We're adding a center island. We're doing a lot of trenching for new site electricity for the light poles. We're actually reorienting some of the parking. So there's a lot of modifications being made to the parking lot. So we wanted to bring to your consideration the potential to, rather than just seal coat this parking lot when all the work is done and all the trenching and backfilling is complete, just consider repaving the entire lot so that everything is fresh and clean and new as you move forward with this overall, or as you're completing this overall huge renovation and addition project. Oh, and Tim wanted me to add, we're also, we're running power out in this island too, so that we have electric car charging stations. We're adding a lot of amenities to the parking lot. But right now, it looks okay. This is a photo from earlier. You can see that there's some age and wear showing through. We wanted to just consider taking this opportunity where you're under budget to add to the contractor's scope or add to the contract scope, repaving the lot in its entirety. We've done some talking with SED, and most likely we need to bid this as a separate project, so it'll need its own contract and contract administration, but it can be included in your referendum project, in your referendum scope. We are anticipating that it would cost between $150,000 and $175,000. And then there's also some architecture and engineering fees and CM or Turner fees. We wanted to just to put it out there and give you guys a chance to consider it, so that when it's all done, you may want to have this new lot rather than a repaired lot with a seal coat.
Megan,
Yeah.
Knowing that our parking lot has never quite been big enough, so much so that we're adding a second one, what is the difference in the time that our parking lot would be unusable on the sealing versus the repaving?
That's a great question. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe all of this still would fall within the overall project schedule and the schedule for parking lot renovations. Is that correct?
So our parking lot will be closed the same amount of time if we repave it versus if we just seal it?
You're going to, compared to everything that's going on in the parking lot, the last part of construction for something like that is to actually put what we call the top course on. So you would go in, do all this, the utility work, right? You basically remove all the material, you do all your utility work, and then you would just use that until you're ready to put a base course in. So the actual paving process would fall within the timeline that already exists to do all of the work that's happening in that phase. And then if you were to go back to the other drawing that I showed you guys, there's the two separate parking lots, the west and the east. What would happen is you go in, you do all the parking and all the work, site work in that pinkish reddish color. You'd put that in what we call as a binder, because your sub base for the most part looks like it's pretty sound. They'd regrade that, put it in a binder, and then they'd wait to do the top course until after we tackled the west existing parking lot. They do all that, and then they top course everything at the same time. So roughly the same amount of time frame it takes you to do all that other work. The paving portion is relatively a few days for each section. You're looking at maybe a two. It's not a lot what you'd think of square footage wise, because they have a big paver that comes in and does it. So they do it in a day roughly. And then everything will get top coursed in at one time, finished and complete at the same time. So within the construction time frame that we have, it wouldn't extend into or elongate the project. Does that answer your question?
It does not. I want to know the difference in time seal coat versus repave.
There really isn't any.
Okay, so seal coating, and I'm not saying in the course of the timeline, I'm saying like repaving takes the parking lot will be closed for 2 days, seal coating, it will be closed for 2 days. There's no difference.
There's really not a huge amount of, well, you're gaining probably about 2 days on each one where that section is going to be closed for us to do work in it anyway. So I guess it's your question is
Okay.
a little bit harder for me to answer because it's not really adding time frame to it because we
Got
just
it.
gear it so that it wouldn't affect you.
That's not the big part of the time for our parking lot, is what you're saying. So,
No, it's
okay.
not. The paving part's not the big part.
Sure. Barbara.
I had a couple of questions. The 175,000 estimate to redo this main parking lot, our current one, and does that include our current auxiliary lot as well?
No, it does not.
So we wouldn't be doing that lot at all.
No. If you'd like to consider doing that, we can look for numbers for that as well.
The once you have this current parking lot all trenched up and everything, it seems to me logical that you're just going to have a bunch of patchwork there. And if the contractor that's doing the new upper lot would be putting a bid in here, hopefully it would be lower because the equipment and things would be on premises or nearby, I would guess. Do you think that's a possibility that contractor would, bid on this thing as well?
Yes. You're correct. They most likely would bid on it, and you're correct that it would probably be a lower number because they are already mobilized on site.
But you're
Some of these
saying
do-
that SED says we still have to go out to a public bid, not just get a quote from that contractor.
Because of the value of this added scope, it needs to be bid. We did ask them, I sent them an email saying, here's what we're thinking about doing because we have some excess funds. Please give us some direction. They said that you need to publicly bid it. And then Pete from Turner and I sent a follow-up email saying, we're already doing, or in the base project, we already had a lot of parking lot renovations in the base scope. Could you please reconsider, because we're really not adding a separate project scope, we're just sort of enhancing this existing scope. So
Right.
we're waiting to see if they'll reconsider, because if they do and we can do it as a change order,
Right.
then that would bring the cost down. But I wanted to present it to you as the worst case scenario, that we have to bid it and you'll be paying for another contractor to mobilize their bonds and insurance fees and such.
Exactly. The second question has to do with the fencing up on the upper lot. You said it went from chain link to aluminum. And I guess the question that I have, I know homeowners have passed by those two things and have gone to some kind of a plastic fencing, which looks very, very nice. Was any consideration given to that, or from an architectural point of view, you didn't think that looked as good, or it's more expensive? I just wanted to ask that question.
The aluminum tends to have a longer lifespan. The plastics or the vinyls tend to get hit with weed whackers after they've aged and gone through the full 4 seasons. After a few years, they hit with a weed whacker or a lawnmower and they tend to break or chip. So we thought this had the best lifespan for you with minimal maintenance. And it's much more attractive than the chain link, especially along Western Avenue.
Oh, thank you.
Other questions?
Kate, I was actually able to go through and do a little bit of calculations, and my guess is that paving would add about 4 to 5 days, but that would fall into for extra 4 or 5 days on top of the seal coating, but it would fall into the same timeline.
Okay. And Megan, my favorite question to ask you is, when do you need us to decide?
If you could give us directions this evening, that would be fantastic, because as Kirk was summarizing for us earlier, they are trying to start doing work in the parking lots soon. They're getting ready to complete the upper level and then move on to the lower level. Kirk, do you know which? I think like the beginning of May they want to start doing the lower level lot work.
Okay.
That is correct. Sorry, I hit unmute.
All right. So,
Just one more,
Barbara,
just a
Yeah.
quick question. If they could take a look at that current auxiliary lot and just see the condition of it, I don't know, Tim may know off the top of his head, but if we're going to have a contractor there doing this other stuff, and if it's a minimal addition, we should at least consider it. But as I said, I don't know the condition. I know it's a newer pavement than our, our current, what do you call it, parking lot. So if somebody could maybe just give us a heads up on whether or not that's necessary. As I said, I know it's newer, so it may not need it.
Well, may I suggest if we go forward and bid the parking lot repaving work, we could include any necessary improvements to the auxiliary lot as an add alternate to the contractor's scope, so that way we can present it to you as what the cost would be, what the scope of improvements would be, and then you can decide yes or no if you'd like to move forward with it
Okay.
during the bids for the main parking lot.
I have a question.
yes, Marcia.
I'm trying to understand this. The options are to repave or just seal the lot as it is?
Correct. Seal once all the trenching work is completed.
So if my understanding is that the existing parking lot that's under consideration now for repaving has some damage to it, is that correct?
Wear and tear, it's a number of years old, so it's getting to the end of its usable life.
So why would sealing be even a consideration? All you're gonna do is seal what's existing, correct?
If sealing it will help preserve it, and you've got about 5 years left on the lot. So
And if repaved, how many years would we have left?
typically asphalt parking lots have about a 30-year lifespan, but everything is also given to or subject to the Northeast weather conditions. If we have
Sure.
cold, hard
Yeah,
winters,
So we're adding 6 or 7 times the life to if we repave?
yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I agree with Barbara. Somebody should take a look at the auxiliary lot as well.
Megan, Barbara, I see your hand. I just want to ask Megan a quick question. With this parking lot, if we were to seal it now, would it be a potential construction grant project?
Repaving the project is not a DLD construction grant fundable project because it's considered maintenance.
Okay.
It's supposed to use the construction grant for maintenance, but rather improvements, enhancements. That's
Okay. Yeah, Barbara.
Question though.
Just an observation, as we're looking at the picture here, where that red truck is, there's going to be an island almost from our doorstep to Western Avenue. And so in order to do that, you're going to obviously have trenching around that. You have a lot of trenching for the light bulbs. And I just make the analogy, when a street has undergone new sewer pipes or new water pipes or a new water line, and the town comes in and just puts a little bit of asphalt over it and then reseals it. It's never the same, and there's going to be so much digging up in that thing that I think I agree with Megan that with all the stuff that's going to be happening in that parking lot and all the wear and tear that it's getting from the large construction equipment that's sitting on it and all that, I certainly would support that.
Are there other questions for Megan? Richard. Yeah.
Megan, would the striping and painting cost be the same for a repave versus a seal?
Yes, because after the sealing, they were already going to repaint everything, like restripe. So.
And are we going to gain any spaces if it needs to be restriped?
No.
Okay, they're already at code or whatever.
They are.
Okay. I'll throw it in. Are our handicap spaces, the number of our handicap spaces per current standards?
Yes. You have 8 available right off the center island.
Yep. Thank you.
Barbara has a question.
A comment to Richards. The handicap spaces that we did have available, though, I think Tim can maybe speak to this. They were placed so that the runoff and the ice formation was sitting basically right underneath the handicap spaces. So when they regrade and all, I'm sure that they'll account for, making those spaces as safe as possible from runoff and things such as that.
That's true. And now those handicap spaces are going to be located further to the right, like where this black truck is and these existing 2 spaces are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so is there a motion to move forward on the parking lot reconstruction?
So moved.
Motion by Barbara, second
Second,
by Marcia. I did not make a spreadsheet tonight to keep track, so just bear with me. I do it the old-fashioned way. All right. So is there discussion? Or are we ready to go to a vote? Is there anyone who wants discussion before a vote? All right, I don't see any.
May I just take a moment? I just want to point
Please.
out, obvious, this is probably obvious, but just say it out loud. Looking at our overall budget, the funds for the parking lot repaving project would now most likely be designated from this unassigned $600,000 budgetary line item, because we've now spent down a lot of our construction contingency on other values. So I just wanted to point that out specifically. Sorry, go ahead.
All right. So it looks like then we are ready to go to a vote. Got a little list going. Parking lot. Richard Rubin.
Yes.
Yes. Barbara Frederigo.
Yes.
Marcia. Yes. Noreen.
Yes.
And we lost Kate. Can anyone tell if yeah, she texted me just now and said connection issue. I don't know if the vice president of the museum or of the board should continue the roll call, or if we should just wait a minute or
Got it.
two.
Can you hear
Are
me?
you back?
I
Yeah.
am. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
gonna just keep the video off because it's raining. So I was on Phil.
Yes.
Yes. Herb Hennings. You with us, Herb? I'll come back. Kathy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Caitlin? Yes. Herb? *6 to unmute. I'm not hearing anything from Herb. So regardless, the motion passes at 6:40. So Megan, you are cleared to move forward with the parking lot reconstruction bid process.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I can, Herb. Hi.
Okay.
What
I
is your
tried to
vote?
unmute and I couldn't, so I had to press mute delete.
Okay. Well,
Okay,
excellent.
and I voted yes.
Oh, thank you. All right, so totally unanimous then. Great. So there you go, Megan. You have your approval, and please continue. Megan? Megan, you're muted.
Sorry.
That's okay.
This is the end of my presentation. We don't have anything else to go over this evening. We're beyond the halfway point, so a lot of our unknowns have been addressed, and our added scope items have already been identified and addressed. So we might have a few other change orders, but it looks like from now on we're gonna just be moving ahead and just giving you updates on finishing up.
Awesome, great. So Kathy, that brings us to you and the design committee report.
I think Megan did a great job of doing my report for me, because I think she went through almost every change order. We had 2 meetings, one on March 31st and one yesterday on the 14th. And we had done a number of change orders, and I think that Megan actually put up all of them, I believe. The plumbing, the new water fountain for staff, the new sink for the janitors use, the removal of the shed, and the remediation of the hazardous materials that were found in there. She mentioned the removal of the tree. Unfortunately, couldn't be saved because of the retaining wall situation. So that was about $12,000. And the upgrading of the fencing, which we thought the aluminum, the committee thought the aluminum looked a lot nicer than the chain link. So that's about $19,700. The new sign trowel trench, and I think the new sign power also. The trench was about $7,000. The new sign power was about $5,000. And the landscaping is kind of interesting. It includes a number of features, including a butterfly garden. So there was a lot of discussion about what plants should be in there to attract which kind of butterflies. So that was kind of an interesting discussion that we had there. So that was pretty much it. So unless you had anything that I forgot, Megan, you feel free to chime in.
Barbara, you have a question?
I have a question. You said that it was $12,000 to remove that one tree. Did that go out to bid? That seems awfully high for one tree, or were there more than one trees?
I think it's a pretty big tree.
It's a very substantial tree. It has a very large root system, and the RGC went and got numbers from a number of different contractors before so the $12,000 number was the lowest number he got.
The only reason why I ask, we've had some tree work done and the price ranges were huge. And the contractor that we ended up with was Anjoe, ANJOE, I think.
That's the contractor for this project, or for this.
That is a contractor, okay, because he was the lowest priced one. Oh, good. Well, thank you for that answer.
Awesome. All right, anything else, Kathy?
I don't think so. We discussed the parking lot, which we had a motion for just now. So we had discussed that at the committee level, but obviously it's way out of our budget that we can approve. So that was pretty much it.
Okay.
So, yep, that's all I have for now.
Okay, great. So that brings us to, looks like Megan and Kirk, that's probably the end for you guys tonight if you want it to be. So thank you very much. And we'll move on to Tony to the treasurer's report.
Hi, everybody. So I looked over the statements prepared and used the same process that I normally do, which is to look at the income statement, balance sheet, and check register concurrent. The goal being is that to look for patterns of money being moved on the check register shown on the income statement, and then make sure the accounts as reported on the balance statement reflect those changes in cash. I focused on the larger dollar amounts, which is the work in process for the construction. That changed by about 990,000 month over month between February and March. And looking over the check registers, it did seem to account for those expenses on them. So that matched up, which is good. On the balance sheet, I have one thing that I wanted to reference. I'm sorry, the income statement. There's a line item on the income statement for the revenue, which falls under the interest, and it shows as negative $935. And there's also a positive renewal project income of $1,649.95. Just the background behind this, Carol and her team took good effort during the month to separate out the income earned from money markets, CDs, cash accounts that are holding tax levy amounts versus money that's set aside for construction expenses. Looking through some of the audit guides from the controller, they do enforce or recommend such practices. So what Carol and her team did was adopt an approach where she is going to separate out the revenue, the interest income from the T-bills, which is provided on the LPL statements each month, and show those as a separate line item. This particular month, since those were previously commingled, she broke them out, and it caused a negative adjustment on the interest line, which will be corrected going forward as those assets will generate positive income. So what you're seeing as a negative there is really an accounting adjustment and not a reflection of interest income going down and an expense having to be paid. That's just separating out the interest based on the tracing rules relative to what's the T-bills and what's the existing or ongoing money market accounts and CDs. The other item that probably catches your eye is the fines of negative $21. And that's due to a refund having to be paid out for fines previously collected. Going down to the expenses on the income statement, I did cross-reference some of the larger items on the check register to make sure those were being accounted for, and it seemed to match up. So I don't really have much commentary on the expense side of the income statement. And then for the balance sheet, again, making sure the line items on the check register matched up. The biggest one being the construction in process. The change month over month did seem to be accounted for in the check register, which I was glad to see that everything was in balance with one another. Other than that, the presentation on the financial statement seemed to be consistent with expenses for prior months and year over year. So everything seemed to be in line, and in summation, it seemed like the reports were well organized and the documents did balance one another, and the adjustment for the interest did seem to be necessary and good practice to separate out to not have commingled funds from the construction project versus other sources of interest income. So in summation, the balance sheets, income statements, and check register looked good, and I was able to tick and tie amounts between all of them.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tony. As always, you're incredibly thorough, and it is greatly appreciated.
You're welcome.
Is there a motion to accept the treasurer's report for March 2021 and the check register for April 2021? I see Phil and Barbara. So motion by Phil, second by Barbara. No questions. I see none. So we'll do a quick vote on agenda items F and G for that motion. Richard?
Yes.
Barbara? Yes. Marcia?
Yes.
Yes. Noreen?
Yes.
Thank you. Phil?
Yes.
Herb?
Yes.
Thank you, Herb. Kathy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And Caitlin, yes. So unanimously passes at 6:51 p.m. Thank you so much. Moving on to committee reports. Kathy, Buildings and Grounds?
We haven't met. I'm planning on touring the building sooner than later. I haven't seen the construction up close recently.
Great. Long range planning? Also Kathy.
Haven't met long-range planning either.
Sure, I
Hopefully-
imagine we'll have a better idea of our long-range plan when we're done with our current project.
Exactly. So we'll plan to meet shortly thereafter.
Great. So I just got informed that Megan wanted to stay for the director's report. So does anyone mind if we take a pause, because Tim is going to talk about the collection move. So if no one minds for a minute, we'll just take a pause and move to the directors and department heads report, and then we'll come back to the committee reports, starting with Barbara and finance. So objections? Seeing none, Tim, take the floor.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm going to share my screen here. I think.
Tim, I can share mine if it's easier.
Hey, that's good. Just the overall map of the library would be great. Okay, and this one is something you're a little more familiar with because it shows the new edition, which is where my cursor is moving over here at the right edge of the screen, but it doesn't have all the colored zones, but it's basically the library you've grown to know and love. And so we hastily arranged for Megan. Megan volunteered to stay on while I talk about the collection move and the upcoming move of some staff members. So what we could do here is I'll go ahead and explain what we're going to be doing over the next week to 10 days. And then at that point, you know, we can see if anyone has questions for myself or Megan or Margaret. But then the full director's report, I'll pause before I go into the full director's report, just to give Megan the opportunity to get, you know, out of our meeting if she'd like to move on to other parts of her life. So just to orient you here, my cursor is currently at the existing front door, okay? And the circle I'm drawing right now is Area A, the youth edition. This general area here is the adult.
Tim?
Yes.
You know that since Megan's sharing her screen, we can't see any of what you're doing.
Ah, okay. So thank you.
I can follow along. Just give me a quick clue.
Okay. So
my cursor's moving over area A.
Okay, and then you're going to move over area B. So area B is adult services, or most of adult services. The rest of adult services is on the north edge of the building, if you'd move up there. And that's known as area F, okay? Area B, side note, was not supposed to start until June and had its final cleaning today in order to be turned over to the library ASAP. So, as you know, the collection is currently stored in area F, so the main reading room of the library, and also in the Helderberg room. And starting on Monday morning at probably about 7:30, most of those collections will move into area B. And that is a process that will take about 8 or 9 work days, and will be total chaos, because not only will the library staff and the construction crew be there, but also there'll be 8 or 10 movers from the moving company moving back and forth. So it's going to be fun, but literally it's fun. Before we embarked on this project, all the other directors and librarians would say, "Oh my God, you're going to hate living through a construction project." But personally, I find it invigorating and exciting. So that's going to happen there. Now, along the north wall of the building, Megan, if it looks like, yeah, there you go. That's where all of the PPS librarians, the librarians who are not administrators, are working now. Sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks, they're going to move to their new office space, which Megan will highlight next. There's a little bit of a holdup in getting the furniture. It's been ordered for about a month, but we'll move them in there on temporary folding tables if we have to, so that we can get the construction going on the north end of the building. About the same time, the administrative staff, IT staff, and fiscal staff will all move into area C, again, as the furniture becomes available or on folding tables if necessary. And that will empty us out of some of the spaces along the north edge of the building so that construction can start more in earnest up that way. So that's just basically, in a nutshell, what we're up to over the next 10 to 20 days. It's very ambitious and disruptive to operations. However, our fine circulation staff, which has been running the curbside pickup, and our PPS librarians who are doing all the online stuff, will be able to keep doing what they're doing, just because the circulation staff is in the lower left corner of the building in a space that will eventually house some other staff. And much of what the PPS librarians are doing can be done in either of their two locations in the building or from home. So, but it's going to be kind of a little bit of controlled chaos when it gets done in about 10 to 15 days, 10 days for the collection, maybe Megan might correct me, but maybe more like 20 days for setting up the new office space. Then we're going to be in heavy duty construction at the front of the building, making even more progress. And we will be able to see what might be possible in terms of creating some limited patron access. I'd say that in our next meeting, we will have our next board meeting, we will have a much better picture of when we could do that for you. So that's kind of the point of telling you about all of these moves. We are at a major transition point in the construction, and nobody really knows what it's going to look like because the timing elements have to come together in whatever way they are going to come together. So once they do, we'll be able to update you about expanding services at that time.
Barbara, you have a question?
Yes, when we move the books from the Helderberg room into the main reading area, are we using new shelving? I know we had talked about having shelving that we could move around, or are we moving the existing shelving into there and waiting for the new stuff? Second question, that 89,000 that we, or thereabouts, that we paid a moving company to move from the reading area to the Helderberg room, is that going to be duplicated, or did that include the move there and back?
Okay, so the first question is, we're mostly moving in this move into existing shelving. So reinstalling existing shelving. And as a side point, for the first time ever, it will be bolted to the floor, which is what you're supposed to do, but was not the industry practice in 1992 when the building was built. The movable shelving comes along a little later in area F. So Megan, I'm going to pause there and see if I got that part right.
You did.
Okay, and then in terms of the 89,000 that we paid that moving company, first of all, we're using the same moving company, and this phase is 37,000. And it's again within the planned budget for this scope. So there may be a third collection move, but we will be able to handle some of that on our own. That sort of remains to be seen. There's a big unknown factor there about when area A becomes available. So it could happen again by the time we speak to you again, but it's all accounted for in the planned budget. And it's, you know, a good price was negotiated. I have to give Megan credit for the negotiation. She did a great job on it.
I'm full service. May I
There you
just,
go.
Barbara, I don't mean to criticize or correct you, but the value for the first Clancy relocation was $60,000 or $60,988 and change.
Richard, do you have a question?
Yeah, it was obviously my misconception, but I thought we were replacing all of the shelving for the collection.
Shelving is so
I remember
expensive.
discussions about it making the collection somewhat more accessible in terms of height and other things. Am I just completely off base, or did we change our mind?
We wanted to do as much of that as we could, but shelving is very expensive, and your existing shelving was in good shape. So what we tried to do was prioritize widening your aisles when we were reusing your existing stacks, And then doing our feature areas or the most highly browsed collections or the ones that are most challenging to browse in terms of visibility. We've put on new lower shelves that are mobile too, so that we are able to clear out this entire area F. All of these stacks are mobile, so that you'll be able to reconfigure or move and open up that space. We've
And the reinstall old shelving, will we have to have the collection configured the same way it was? In other words, things very close to the floor. Will there be any way of making accessibility more convenient, even though it's the same old shelving?
I'm sorry, you were very quiet. I didn't hear your full question.
I'm sorry. I just wondered if there was a way, we're putting the same books back on the same shelves, basically. But I just wondered if there was any way of reducing what we're going to have on lowest shelves, anything we can do to make it more easily browsable and more accessible, other than widening the aisles.
We have better lighting, wider aisles, and in places they won't be using the bottom shelves, and the shelves won't be as full. They're not going to be the full 3 foot, fill. So they've taken into account collection statistics and the trends, and they're planning accordingly. They've also gone to, I'm sorry, they being the staff have done a lot of studying and analyzing the collection. They've broken out more of the fiction subgenres so that they're easier to identify and browse. So I think it's actually going to work out very well. It looks like there's a lot of existing shelving, but I think it's a good balance between new and old. We're also going to upgrade the end panels so that they look a little bit newer. And in a few locations, we've reduced the end units so that they're lower, so that we've got some better sight lines and such, just for browsing and for supervision between staff.
And my other question is, you talked about the ends of the shelving. Well, the signs that were on the previous shelving were not all that attractive. Are we doing something different for signage as to what's in each row of the collection?
So we've included in these new end panels a built-in 8.5 by 11 acrylic holder for signage, so that while the library might only use a traditional 8.5 by 11 white sheet of paper to print their collection information on, it'll all be standardized at the same location for each end panel, and it won't be adhered with tape, which always looks so unattractive when you go into a library where things are taped on haphazardly.
I could just get in the weeds just if we decide on a standard font and size.
I think right now the signage that they're using, the temporary signage that they're using on the end panels is nice and clear. So we can recommend that they use something similar to that when they move forward with their standardizing for the new panels.
I just wonder if different, as long as we're putting pieces of paper in holders, I wonder if different colored paper could be used for different genres. That would help.
It's an interesting idea. I'll bring it to the staff.
Absolutely. I mean, and I'm trying to be respectful, Richard, but it is very deep in the weeds that you are right now. There's and with all due respect, I can see nothing fiduciary about the question. We've got some good graphic designers on staff. We'll make it look nice.
No, it's not fiduciary at all. It's just wanting it to be the best it can be.
Absolutely.
It's always where my heart is. So
absolutely.
All right, Barbara.
I think Megan referred to this question, but how much shelving did we lose by making our aisles handicapped accessible like they should have been, many years ago? Did we lose a lot, or just the reconfiguration will, sort of equal us out while giving that access?
I didn't do a full shelf count of before and after. I knew that we weren't ever trying to dramatically reduce any collection. So I think you're at pretty much the same status. It's just that we've spaced things out better. You've gained some floor space with the children's area no longer being here. So we were able to try to maintain the collection levels that you previously had.
Excellent. So no more questions about collection move at the moment. So Tim, why don't you continue?
Okay, great. Thank you. And Megan, thank you for volunteering to stay. And as far as I'm personally concerned, your expertise is unlikely to be needed for the rest of the evening. But you do what you want to do. So the general things that I've spent time on during the month of March were, of course, finalizing the budget, working on the board election situation, which required, staying abreast of the governor's changes in executive orders. I would remind our two board members, Phil Metzger and Herb Hennings, that paperwork is due at the district office this coming Monday, April 19th. I assume that's at the close of business. And of course, I hope that you both are still intending to run again, but I'm not pausing to ask you a question. Just reminding you of that deadline. We did install a new phone system this week or this past month. We did plenty of work on some policies on COVID-19 and of course on construction itself, aquarium and fireplace development, working on trying to replace the electronic sign, finalizing the RFP for the cafe, and then I'm the director from Upper Hudson who represents all directors on the anti-racism task force. So that was a major focus of my work for the month. Want to talk briefly about the IT department. None of you would be in this position, but let's say you were a board member who was really, really busy in other elements of your life this month, and you didn't get a chance to read the packet that was sent out last week. If that were the case, and you were to read only one thing, you should read the IT report, which is a little longer than it usually is. So the IT department, headed by Sean Silvernail and with John Lorang and Tom Nucci, just did an extraordinary job during the month. In addition to their regular work, they dealt with the gigantic hafnium breach, working with the FBI and a couple of private firms that we've worked with to work on cybersecurity. They finished pricing out and completely installed a new phone system. And they also redid the wiring schematics for the entire building construction project. So those three projects alone, taken separately, would have been just astonishing for the IT department to have to do on top of their regular work, but they did them all at the same time. It was one of the most amazing things I ever saw, and congratulations are due not just for doing that, but also one of the three members, John Lorang, did that, putting in a lot of extra hours when his wife was imminently about to deliver their second child, and their second child has now come along just in time. Thankfully, we got all those projects done before John had to leave to take some time off with his family. So congratulations to John. An interesting note from Luann's report with social media, as I was reading that, it may say something about libraries, it may say something about social media, but some of the numbers that she put in there basically skew with the old 80-20 rule, that our audience through social media is essentially 80% female and 20% male. So that's interesting. There are other, you could look at our circulation theoretically and see if men checked it out or women checked it out, but it's kind of an interesting thing just to think about. The PPS job has done an amazing job with weeding and collection management and preparing for the physical construction move, especially Christina Ronald, who you allowed us to elevate to the position of L2 for collection management about 6 or 8 months ago. We had this in mind, and she's really been shining at that. But it's been a team effort that has involved in some ways every department of the library, including Sing Yoon Lee, an employee in the circulation department who's essentially a software genius and has helped us use the kind of arcane UHLS software system to make that move work very, very well. The maintenance department, which has been moving a lot of stuff, and even administration has done some work on that. One thing in Maria's report about the PPS department is the growth in the use of Pronunciator, the new tool that I reported on a few months ago for language learning. And we continue to have a strong interest in Igbo, the language of Nigeria. And also now a new development with a lot of people learning Portuguese, which is interesting to me. I'm not particularly aware of a large Brazilian or Portuguese component of Guilderland, but there's interest, whether it's among those folks or among folks learning Portuguese. And also, a month ago, I reported that the same department had installed Creative Bug on the website, which is a giant collection of expert videos on crafting, and that is being used very, very well by both the librarians in presenting programs and by patrons watching stuff on their own. I got an email, there was an email chain going around earlier in the week where some patrons had expressed their thanks to librarians for online programming efforts. And if the board is interested, I will forward that to everybody, that email chain. But I just wanted to point out two patrons who were involved in it who one said that the online programming efforts literally saved her quality of life, not her life itself, but her husband had to move to an assisted living facility, and it was through interacting with other people at the online craft workshops that she got herself back on her feet. So I am impressed that we are able to make that human connection even through technological means. I will also say on the other side of the coin that I spent an hour today speaking with a very irate patron who was upset with the fact that the library is not open for public browsing at this time. And not even mentioning that there were 75 workers in hard hats in the library could really change that person's opinion. So there are obviously both sides of the coin. I do want to mention the video that I sent out today. Hopefully you've all been able to take a look at it. It's very brief, but I think it's a great point in time for all 11 board members to get another tour. And so I would like to try to do that next week for everyone who's available. Megan has actually offered to go with us if we could do a big joint tour. But obviously that would happen during the workday, and there are many of you who do work. So we can do a series of tours. In texting with Richard Rubin earlier in this meeting, I established one tour for this coming Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. So anybody listening, of course, is welcome to join that one. I will try to see if Megan is available for that. Other than that, I'm available other times, Tuesday afternoon and Thursday morning of next week, and then all day next Friday. So that's everything I have for the director's report. I'm, of course, happy to entertain questions.
Are there questions? Marcia.
Should we take the opportunity, based on what Tim has said, for the board to recognize particularly the department heads and staff for the wonderful job that Tom has indicated they've done over the past few weeks?
Sure, if someone wants to make a motion to that effect, but I would say I think they'd appreciate more if we take the opportunity to do so and thank them when their contracts come back up in front of the board. They might prefer that. Just a thought. Well, but if someone wants to make a motion, please do so.
I make such a motion.
What is the motion?
The motion is to recognize the Tim, the department heads, and the staff who work in each department for the extraordinary amount of work and diligence that they've shown over the past few weeks under construction circumstances, and that the board appreciates all of their efforts.
Motion by Marcia, second by Noreen. So quick roll call.
I have some discussion.
Oh, you have discussion. Please do, Herb.
Yes. The one way that these people can be recognized is through the awards given by the Upper Hudson Library System, which will be done on June 9th at the virtual annual celebration. The nomination forms are going out at this point to the directors for nominations for the awards, such as program and, you know, library employees and whatnot, you know, so that, you know, if Tim feels it within his purview to nominate someone or a group of people this year, that is one way that people can be recognized.
Excellent. Thank you, Herb, for that reminder. So we'll be sure to have that on Tim's radar, that's going out to him. So I'll start with you, Herb. Are you in favor of the motion?
Yes.
Yes from Herb. Richard? Richard, I didn't catch that.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Barbara? Yes. Marcia? Yes. Noreen?
Yes.
Yes. Phil?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Jason is no longer in the meeting, and Caitlin is a yes. So unanimous at 7:18, a motion that publicly recognizes our staff. Yes, Tim.
I do want to say thank you for that, but I also see Jason's name on my screen. So.
Oh, I do. I missed it.
Yeah.
Jason, did you have a vote? Jason? So Jason will remain as a did not vote. All right, so Tim, are you all set with your directors and department heads report?
I am.
All right, so is there a motion to accept the directors and department heads reports for March 2021? Noreen, is there a second? Phil, excellent. Is there discussion? Seeing none, we'll go into a vote. Richard?
Yes.
Barbara? Yes. Marcia? Yes. Noreen?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Herb?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Jason? Jason? Recorded as did not vote. Caitlin, yes. So the motion passes at 7:20. All right. So back up into the committee reports. Barbara, Finance Committee? You're muted.
We presented the budget at the 5:30 meeting. Did not get any feedback from the public, but we'll send out the relevant information as the time requires.
Thank you so much. Foundation is me. I don't have anything from the foundation this month. Tim, you have something?
Yes, I just wanted to share the good news that Richard Rubin and myself attended the foundation meeting last Thursday night, and virtually, of course. And the foundation really loves the aquarium idea for its possibilities for youth programming. So the builder of the aquarium, Steve Coletti from Albright Aquariums, is donating the first 10 months of maintenance fees, and that had previously been established. The foundation is going to pick up the next 14 months of maintenance fees after that. It's approximately $400 a month. So we've got the maintenance covered for the first 2 years, and the foundation is excited about the opportunity to try to sell that as an ongoing corporate sponsorship, and is also thinking about simply covering the maintenance permanently in order to brand the aquarium with the Guilderland Library Foundation name. They're going to wait and see what the public reaction to the aquarium is, but they believe that that would be a nice thing for them to focus on. They also will be announcing soon that they're going to have a golf tournament on Friday the 13th, Friday, August 13th. I'm calling it the Triskaidekaphobic Classic, but I don't know if that name will stick. But at any rate, there will be a golf tournament at the Western Turnpike Golf Course with a little reception afterwards for up to 100 people, which is the amount that's currently allowed. And then lastly, they are looking at that completion of the library in August or September and hoping to do a cocktail party as a fundraiser kind of grand opening event. But you know, the selecting the date for that remains a moving target. In a month or two, we'll probably be able to say with certainty we could do it on Saturday such and such. But right now, even though 90% of the heavy mechanical, electrical, plumbing construction is done, there's still some question marks, so they don't want to pick a date for that yet. But it's on the horizon. So they're excited about getting back to their library business as well.
Thanks,
Is
Tim.
it both aquariums?
What, Herb?
Is it both aquariums that they're going to pick up the charge for?
Herb, the design committee decided not to accept the smaller aquarium that the owner was going to donate to us. It was 2 feet by 2 feet. And the reason for that was that it was hard to find a place in the building where that made any sense. Plus, it would have added another $125 a month in maintenance costs. And that particular factor wasn't known as of last Thursday when the foundation met. But Richard and I and Margaret Garrett and Megan, the architect, all looked at that and said, we're going to have a great 540-gallon aquarium. So the smaller one seemed a little superfluous to us, particularly with its ongoing maintenance cost. So we politely said, thanks, but no thanks. And he was not upset at that. So.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Great question, Herb. All right. So Barbara, personnel.
We have not met.
Okay, and labor relations or labor management.
Same there. We have not met.
Great. All right. So now we are at the policy committee. So last month, Noreen presented a few policies. This is the meeting that we'll be voting on them. So for those of us who participated in the earlier presentation of the budget, we're already into 2 hours of a meeting. So I would ask that you be respectful of time by not asking repeat questions to make sure that you're being succinct and to the point. And if you need further clarification, please do so. Please ask your questions, but we'll be moving to a vote on these things since we've all had the time to look at them. This isn't a forum necessarily to argue about what should or should the policy not be, but rather we want to get to a vote, and if it doesn't pass, then it will go back to committee and they'll go back to doing the great work. But these policies will either pass or not tonight, and if they don't pass, they'll go back to work. And at which point then we can give input. Then you can join the policy committee meetings and give input on the amendments that you'd like to see there. So please be respectful of Noreen. She has worked incredibly hard on this. And with that, I turn it over to you, Noreen.
Thank you, Caitlin. So the policy committee did not meet this month, but basically what's on the table is the 3 policies that we've been working on: the bylaws, bylaws, public comment, and telecommuting. I don't have anything new to bring to the table, just, I guess, basically to bring it to a vote, or obviously discussion, brief discussion, but basically to see a bit what people will vote on.
Let's start one policy at a time
Okay,
to discuss and focus on to keep ourselves straight.
okay.
Is there, Noreen, do you want to start with
Bylaws.
the bylaws? Sure.
Yeah.
Barbara, I believe you have a question. And you are muted.
Okay, I do have a number of questions. I don't know if we can have a discussion. It seems to be limited. But what I would like to do is have that quick discussion, and ask a question if I can. If not, if it has to be in the form of an amendment to what is presented, I can do that. But however you want me to do it. On page,
Yeah, just why don't you dive in? You know, we're not trying to pick apart the policy as presented, but if you've got a question about why the policy committee made a decision in a certain way, I'm sure Noreen can answer that for you.
okay, on page 4, under the treasurer, under our old policy, it says the treasurer shall submit the account books for a yearly audit by the external auditor and shall review and submit the annual audit to the board for acceptance. And I know this has always been the procedure in the past, but unless I'm missing it, it's not under D, the duties of the treasurer. And I was wondering why that was omitted.
Okay, I'm sorry, are you page 4, Article 5?
Yes, number D. And the old one reads, the treasurer shall submit the account books for a yearly audit by the external auditor and shall review and submit the annual audit to the board for acceptance, which has always been the standard policy, and I didn't know why that was eliminated.
I think we just, I mean, I'm sorry, there's been so much that we just reformatted and discussed it. I'm sorry, Barbara, I think for me, this kind of discussion was probably gonna come beforehand. I think to go into this right now, I don't know. I just feel like we've gone over this several times. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is it's so intricate that I would have to bring out all my notes to see why we decided on what we changed.
Well, is it Carol? Is that something that Carol presents, or is that just something that like just decided didn't have a place in the bylaws?
I mean, it's been in our bylaws for all these years, and I didn't know something that is one of the functions that usually happens, and I just didn't know why that, was eliminated. I could put it in the form of a motion, or we could just, I should ask a couple of other questions, and you can decide if you want to take it back and look at it, or.
Let's move forward, and while over this time, we'll mull over an amendment while you keep going with other questions.
Okay, under, let's see, number, Article 6, meetings of the board. Number 6, executive sessions. I would think it's important that you clarify that executive sessions are not open to the public or are open only by invitation.
Well, we put here under New York State open meetings laws, which I think would cover that, like what you're saying.
I believe you're correct, Noreen, that is already covered by open meeting law, a policy on executive session.
Okay. And the other one that I had a question on was the, I'm trying to find where it is. Sorry to not have this marked, but it was the, the vacancy. That was on number 3C. Under Board of Trustees, Article 3C.
Oh, 1 second, that's fine.
And I had raised the question. It says in your bylaws, you're recommending that in an incomplete term, the candidate who received the highest number of votes but was not elected shall be offered the vacant trustee position. And I had raised the question, if in the interim, you know, something medically has happened to this individual, if a felony has been committed or something, to lock a future board into requiring that individual to be offered that position seemed unwarranted to me. But again, that was my objection to that.
Did you have a question on why the policy committee decided to add that?
That could be a question or could be an amendment to take that out, however you want to deal with it.
Noreen, did you want to discuss that addition to the bylaws?
One
defining
Sorry, I'm just processing. So what, I'm sorry, Barbara, I'm just trying to process like what you're saying. So you're saying that if this is offered to the person who did not get.
No, what I'm saying, to lock a future board by our bylaws into requiring that board to offer the candidate that had the next highest number of votes
Right.
to a potentially vacant position. Many things may have happened in the interim that a future board may not want to. That individual may have been charged with a felony. That individual may have, you know, had a medical event that.
Barbara, I hate to cut you off. I understand there are examples and extenuating circumstances as why, you know, any extenuating circumstances that the board might not want to do that. Richard, you're on the policy committee and worked on this?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to address Barbara's 3 points. And I would say that the duty of the treasurer that you put in, if it could be easily done tonight as an amendment, Noreen, I don't see any reason why that couldn't be added back in. It just basically says the treasurer makes a recommendation to the audit committee. It may have been an omission and seems like it could be easily added if my colleagues agree. Number 2, as far as the committing the board to a candidate, I don't think we can abandon this policy just because of the potential that somebody could have gone bad in between the time of the election and when they are appointed. We do have ways to remove trustees if necessary. I think we need to rely on that, but this seemed to be the most organized way of filling a vacancy. And I think your third question, yes, I had actually wanted the bylaws to say more explicitly that about executive sessions being closed. It was recommended to us that the open meeting law does cover that, and that we are covered if anyone objects by the statement about the open meeting law. So the only thing I would suggest based on what you said is a simple amendment, adding one statement to the duties of the treasurer, if that meets with the approval of the group.
So when I believe, and Herb is the one to correct me if I'm wrong here on the procedures, that it would be the motion gets made and then the amendment?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, so we haven't even made a motion yet, but when the time comes, I don't see an objection to the motion of adding that section of the treasurer's responsibilities back in.
Well, that can be added to the motion when the motion is made. It doesn't have to be an amendment if there's no motion on the floor as yet.
Motion to accept the bylaws is made. We actually don't need a motion because it's coming out of a committee, so it just needs a second. But if you can reflect that I've moved that we accept the bylaws as presented.
Richard makes a motion to accept the bylaws. Is there a second? Barbara? You make a second. All right. So is there a motion to amend? Barbara?
The first motion I would make was the addition under the treasurer's duties that the treasurer shall submit the account books for a yearly audit by the external auditor and shall review and submit the annual audit to the board for acceptance.
Is there a second to the amendment? Second by Richard. Does that mean, so you accept the motion to the amendment to your motion,
I do
Richard?
indeed. Yes.
And do we vote on the amendment?
You vote on the amendment first.
Yeah, we vote on the amendment first. All right, so,
Just clarification, Richard or anybody that has made a motion doesn't have to accept the amendment as far as I understand it.
okay.
It has to go to, which is going to anyway, but
But it is, okay. So, that being said, we'll move right into that. If there's no discussion on the treasurer's responsibilities. All right, Richard?
Yes.
Barbara? Yes. Marcia?
Yes.
Noreen?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Herb?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Caitlin, yes. So the motion to amend passes at 7:37. There was a motion and a second on the bylaws. Is everyone ready to go to a vote?
I would like to make a motion, even though there doesn't seem to be a lot of support, but I really think it's important that under that executive session that we clarify it. Most people don't read the open meetings law, but they could clearly understand if you put a sentence in there that said that executive sessions are not open to the public. I think that just clarifies it and doesn't make people have to dig into the open meetings law and read thousands of opinions.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Jason. Discussion? Okay, we'll go to a vote. Richard? No. Barbara?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Noreen?
No.
Bill?
No.
Herb?
No.
Kathy?
No.
Jason?
Yes.
Caitlin? No.
I said yes.
I said I got your yes. It was my no.
Oh, thank you.
Yep, so I have 3 in favor and 6 against, so that motion fails. Still in motion on the table for the bylaws with the approved amendment of the treasurer's duties, I should say. Is there further discussion? Or are we ready to move to a vote?
I make a
Marcia?
motion, we vote to approve the bylaws.
All right, we will go right into a vote. That doesn't have to be a motion. We can just go in if everybody's ready. Richard?
Yes.
Barbara? Yes. Marcia? Noreen?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Herb?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Caitlin, yes. Unanimously approved the bylaws at 7:40. I'd love to call the end of the meeting right there so we can all celebrate that in person, but that's not the case. So the recovery room will have to wait again. So moving on, Noreen, to public comment.
Is that before the Upper Hudson report?
Yes, yeah, we're still, we only voted on one of those things, Herb. We still have public comment policy and telecommuting policy.
Oh, okay.
Yep, don't worry, you're up soon.
Mm-hmm.
Noreen, you want to move to public comment?
Yes, basically we added that line, and it's just, I think, it's open to discussion, but I think it's either gonna be a yes or a no on the public comment.
Why don't we unofficial straw poll, to see where people are at,
Sure.
to see if we're gonna go back to this. Is there an objection to that? So if I can see you, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Okay, I see a couple of thumbs up.
Couldn't hear you, Caitlin. What did you say?
Oh, I'm sorry. We're gonna do a quick, just thumbs up or thumbs down to get a feeling on whether this policy is gonna pass or not.
Okay.
So.
Can you just briefly go over the policy?
Well,
Absolutely.
and couldn't we ask questions before we jam
Oh
this
yeah,
through?
yeah, Barbara, I said an unofficial straw poll before we go to a motion to see where things are gonna land. As we did last time we discussed this policy, because it was very divided, almost 50-50 down the line. So we were trying to make a policy that more board members would be in favor of, and not just push through a policy that would pass for the sake of passing. So we were looking to do that again. So it might still be 50-50 at this point. But Noreen, why don't you, for Herb, go over, and then again, I asked that, you know, we pretty much know people's opinions on certain matters. Let's not rehash that. If you have clarifying questions that you'd like to ask, please do so once Noreen is done briefly going over the policy.
Hi, Herb. So basically, this is the public comment, and I'll just read you quickly, if you don't have it in front of you, the purpose of the public comment. The purpose of this policy is to encourage public input from the broader library community on library-related subjects. The point where some of the board members, couldn't decide on was whether to have it anonymous or not. And the policy committee really tried to come together in both ends. And the line that we put in was, speakers are encouraged but not required to share their name if they so wish. And if representing a group, the name of the group. That wasn't originally on the public comment that we originally wrote in. We amended it, or I'm sorry, we didn't amend it. We put in that line to see if we can meet both sides.
Okay.
Are there questions for Noreen?
I have a comment. If these policies are meant as guidelines, we say 30 minutes will be allowed at the beginning of the meeting for public comment. At the conclusion of the meeting, 15 minutes will be, allowed. Individual participation limited to 3 minutes, but it really doesn't give a procedure. Now, when we had in-person meetings, it was very obvious. A person would come, identify themselves, make their 3-minute statement, and, sit down or leave if they chose. But there's nothing here that would instruct an individual without having to go through a whole bunch of phone calls and hoops as to how they can make public comment in a virtual setting. So to me, it would be nice if we fluffed that out a little bit and gave people some direction, on that. The second point that I would make, and I've already said it, so I won't repeat myself 5 times, according to Caitlin. There is no public body that I know of that does not require their person to identify themselves. So that's simply, a decision that each individual board member will have to make. But we were sort of responding to a flood of things at one meeting, and of all the multiple years that many of us have served on the board, we've never had that many people come forward, because our meetings have always been in real time and in front of each other, and people have always identified themselves for X number of years now. And I would just hope that we could retain that. Because as I said, I don't know of any public body that doesn't require you to identify yourself. Some require even an address. That's it. So I would make an amendment if we had to, and just see how it went, because I think it's really important that anonymous things oftentimes, can be sort of over the top.
I think we understand where you're coming from, Barbara. So, and this is probably a sticking point for a lot of people. We could go back and forth about it, but when our board in the past year has had things that have been very divisive, it just hasn't been a very nice board to be on. So I would encourage people to, not rehash some of these things that have already been worked out in committee, and go forward. Questions, please, for Noreen, if you have them. I saw Marcia, you had a hand, and then Richard, I see you as well.
Yeah, just a point of clarification, Barbara, with all due respect, there are libraries that do not require people to give their names. And we had examples of them earlier on when we started to look at this issue. So I don't really want to debate this any longer. I have nothing else to say.
Thank you, Marcia. Richard?
Yeah, I would just like to say as well, we looked through a ton of policies and agreed with Marcia that many of them do not. I want to tell you that as a board that I personally believe that people should identify themselves. But I also believe that out of respect for those who don't, who feel very strongly on this issue, I've come around and I will vote for this because I don't see that it's going to be harmful. So I just, in the interest of conciliation and coming to agreement, this is not something, a hill that I think that I need to die on.
I have a question for Noreen. How would you deal with slanderous comments and comments, with using language of very bad taste if the people won't even identify themselves? This might open up for all sorts of, neo-Nazis and Antifa and everyone.
Herb, I'm going to jump in here.
Herb, on one of the bullet points that we wrote, we specifically addressed that, and it says here, personal attacks on library board members or staff members will not be tolerated, nor will language that is considered offensive, harassing, or profane. If a speaker uses language that is inappropriate, the board president shall declare a speaker out of order and refuse them permission to continue to address the board. So
Okay,
any kind of language like that will be stopped.
Well, that helps me on this quite a bit.
Do you have it? Do you have it in front of you?
No, I don't, because I don't have a printer, and I have on my computer. I have there's several all sorts of different things from this meeting.
So Herb, for just to put the picture in your mind of what the policy looks like, and if everybody can just bear 2 minutes while I read this aloud for Herb to hear it, so he can vote on it. The bullet points that we put are 30 minutes will be allowed at the beginning of a monthly board meeting for public comment. At the conclusion of the meeting, 15 minutes will be allowed for public comment. Individual participation is limited to 3 minutes. Second bullet point, speakers are encouraged but not required to share their name if they so wish, and if representing a group, the name of the group. Third bullet point, residency is not required. Fourth is speakers may comment on only library-related subjects. The board does not allow discussion of matters irrelevant to library business. The fifth one I just read out loud to you, which has to deal with the language. And the last one is public comments will be included in the minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So again, I just want to thank Noreen. This is excellent work. And Herb, to your point, there is a provision in this policy for profane or inappropriate language. That being said, this board has been, not this board specifically, but the Guilderland Library Board has been operating without a public comment policy for about 30 years. And there have been public comments accepted by the board and by members on this board for many years without a policy. So it's certainly worked up until a point when it didn't. And now we're putting in a policy to do so. But I think that while, you know, things may have always been done a certain way, it was never actually a requirement. So we're not backtracking on anything that was done. I think, in fact, Herb, we're solidifying that, you know, as a board, we're not going to tolerate any sort of abusive language from patrons. So, you know, and that being said, I would hope that any board member during public comment, besides the president, could step up and say, whoa, 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 that's an attack on someone or something, and it is offensive. So is there a motion?
Can I say something?
Yes, please do, Jason. I know you worked on this policy as well.
I was on this policy, and like, you know, I feel like this is the best I can do, was just like a little like thing with no teeth that said like, hey, we encourage you to please like give your name. But with that being said, like, I still find it like really I'm totally against non-transparency. Like, I believe in transparency, and I think that when like this has already been an issue because people weaponized it. You know, it was weaponized to attack people, and we're acting like that didn't happen. So I know I was on this committee. I know I helped write this policy, but I still don't like it.
Thank you, Jason. Noted. So is there a motion to accept the public comment as presented? Phil,
I make the motion.
I got Phil for the motion, Marcia with the second. Is there any further discussion, or should we move to a vote? Barbara?
I would make a motion that the second bullet would be revised to say that speakers must identify themselves or any organization that they're representing.
Second that.
Yeah, and this is an amendment to take out the second bullet, correct?
Right, that you would be anonymous and you could present a comment totally anonymously about any library matter.
Okay, so then the amendment has a second, and then we go to discussion on the amendment.
Correct. Yeah. It looks like the amendment is to require people to give their names. And for the record, this conversation has been had multiple times. Board members know where they stand. I'm not sure a lot of discussion needs to happen, but I am encouraging us to move to a vote sooner rather than later.
Fine.
Okay, so yes, Phil.
So if I came in for public comment and you asked for my name and I said I'm Joe Schmo, what's the plan then? Is there somebody who's supposed to be looking at my driver's license to validate who I am?
The requirements that I've seen, if you go before the town board or the school board, you put your name and you put your address on, and I think people assume that you're acting in good faith. So nobody has ever asked an individual, as far as I know of, for an ID.
So while I haven't researched this, it's my understanding that in a place where that is required, that there is somebody with a clerk-like position who takes these names, validates who these people are, and tells them when they're talking and everything like that. And I don't think that was really addressed in here. There's nothing stopping me from walking in and saying I'm whoever.
That is true. The people are just assume good faith.
But if you say you're Joe Biden or something, and we obviously know you're not, then that would probably be something to challenge you on.
Okay.
If you're talking about good faith, I mean, I think we've done this ad nauseum, but if you're talking about good faith, if someone does not wish to give their name, you have to assume they are also acting in good faith, and they have a reason for not doing so. I think we should vote this up or down. We've talked about this forever.
I will allow Richard his hand up, one comment, and then let's go to a vote.
No, I'd like to move to call the question.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're going into a vote on this. Richard?
On the amendment, we're voting, right?
Yes, on the amendment.
Sorry, on the amendment, no.
Barbara?
Yes.
Marcia?
No.
Noreen?
No.
Phil?
No.
Herb?
Yes.
Kathy?
No.
Jason?
Yes.
Caitlin? No. Peter?
Yes.
So only 4 in favor. The motion does not pass. So there's no amendment to the presented policy on public comment. So that being said, let's go into a vote on the motion on the public comment policy. Richard?
Yes.
Barbara?
No.
Marcia?
Yes.
Noreen?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Herb?
It's not perfect, but it's fairly good, so I'll have to vote yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Jason?
No.
Caitlin, yes. Peter?
Strongly opposed. No.
So 7 in favor, 3 against, 4 against. The motion passes at 7:59. So finally moving on, Noreen, to the telecommuting policy.
With the telecommuting policy, I'm sorry, I don't have the original in front of me, but Tim, if you could help me out, this is more your area. I think it was one line, right, that we had to change?
Yeah, boy, that's been a while. That's been at least 5 weeks. All I could say is a variation of what's been said on other subjects, which is, 3 or 4 excellent library board volunteers have worked on this. Margaret Garrett did a ton of work adapting it from other libraries. Nobody had any objections to it earlier that I can recall. So I honestly can't remember why it waited 1 more month. Sorry.
Jason had a change. Jason asked for a change in how the reporting or who did the reporting.
That's what it was.
Productivity.
Yeah, it was either the board or the executive director.
Right.
And we changed it to the director. That's what it
Correct.
was.
Yeah, Tim's ultimately responsible for those things. That was like the one part of the document that we changed. It was just one line.
Right.
Okay, so is there further discussion on the public comment policy?
I'd like to move acceptance.
I second.
Motion by Richard, second by Marcia for
Caitlin, we're talking about the telecommuting policy, correct?
the telecommuting policy.
Yes, you said public comment, just clarifying.
Sorry, thank you. It's telecommuting. So motion by Richard, second by Marcia on the telecommuting policy. Discussion? Questions? We'll move to a vote. Richard?
Yes.
Barbara? Yes. Marcia?
Yes.
Noreen?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Herb?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Caitlin? Yes. Peter?
Yes.
Excellent. Unanimous at 8:01 p.m. Thank you very much, Noreen, and the policy committee for your tireless efforts in this. Moving on to Phil and the COVID Action Committee.
We did not meet.
Excellent. But Tim, this plan has been submitted by our April 1st deadline. I'm getting a nod. Excellent work. UHLS, Herb, please give an update.
Okay, you should have a written update of this. Does everybody have the written report?
Yep.
Yes, it was received.
Okay, and then are there any questions or comments concerning that report?
I see none, Herb.
Okay, because there are a couple of important things in the report, such as the awards that become recommended by the library directors to be voted on by the committees of the UHLS, and then the awards are made on June 9th if Tim, considers anyone or any program to be deserving of one or more of these awards. There's also financials. Guilderland is getting some extra money, not a lot, but some extra money because there was a little money returned on the construction aid, so the Upper Hudson library system got a little more to bring Guilderland and Cohoes and Hoosick Falls up to the maximum levels or close to those levels. And the rest of the report is pretty much, is informational and is there for your perusal.
Thank you so much, Herb. And again, thank you for representing the Guilderland Library at the Upper Hudson. So we have done the director's reports and department heads. So we're moving on to old business Juneteenth holiday. So this was brought to my attention by Tim. Unions were again asking to know the status of Juneteenth as a holiday. The board had previously voted that should the governor make Juneteenth a state holiday, it would become a library holiday. However, that motion we had thought passed, but on further investigation of the number of votes our board is required for a affirmative in favor vote, there weren't actually enough. We had a majority of the board members present, but not a majority of the board, as all our board votes require. So Juneteenth as a library staff holiday is back on the table. There's been conversations with Chris Lanchanton about what we are required to do, what we are not required to do. So Tim, if you'd like to speak a little bit about the knowledge you have on this, and then we'll look to make a motion or not.
So I will also ask Margaret Garrett to correct me if I get anything wrong, but I believe that Chris Lanchanton said that it was difficult, if not impossible, to determine whether we would be required to celebrate this holiday as a paid holiday. It did not seem to be in the governor's executive order, and there was something about the nature of this holiday that made it different from some other holidays that the state has recognized. The other thing is that it seems to me from talking to Margaret and Chris Lanchanton that if we, and Margaret can correct me if I'm wrong, but if the board were to choose to observe Juneteenth, there are a number of ways to do it. One is to close the library. Another is to give it as a paid holiday, but in a floating sense, so that the library can remain open and staff members can use the holiday within a certain period of time, usually one pay period. That the board can make whatever decision it wants to make, but that decision really needs to be to call a labor management committee meeting so that the way that it's observed can be worked out with the union, since it's not currently called for in the existing contract. Margaret, I'm going to ask you if I summarized that stuff correctly.
Yes, and we also did a survey of member libraries if anybody's interested. I think it's fair to say people are still all over the map and some are still undecided on how to treat this.
And then my other comment I made before, but it's been 6 or 8 months. The staff strongly supports it from a social justice point of view. You may, as board members with a fiduciary responsibility, obviously be thinking about the theoretical cost to taxpayers, and it may be in your mind. I'm not you, so I can't say this, that why wouldn't an employee support a holiday that they get off and get paid for? But I work with these people every day, and it is more because they believe that it is an appropriate historical, it's the right thing to do from a historical perspective. Nobody anywhere on earth has any problem getting a day off. I don't really believe that's the motivation here. I believe the motivation is to try to learn from our history.
There's a few possibilities, and we would have to vote by next meeting. I would suggest, I know it is bolded, if we can make a motion tonight. I'm not sure we're there. You know, the library building and services, do we suspend services is a question. That's the first question. That's I think the overarching will direct us where to go from there. If we close, if we, suspend services to celebrate Juneteenth, or we don't, that directs the next steps. So is there, and there are logistics, and I don't want to get caught in the weeds because this is something that will go to labor management and end up being a conversation with the union. So let's discuss. Barbara.
Shouldn't we have the labor management meeting before the next meeting so that we, sort of iron out what the administration prefers? Do they prefer the floating holiday, which at first view in my mind seems to be the best way? We always try to keep the library open, but just have more information. Right now, we really don't have anything to sink our teeth into.
Okay, any other thoughts from other board members?
Yes,
Marsha?
I have something.
Okay, we'll go Phil and then, or I'm sorry, Herb and then Marsha.
Okay, Phil is going first.
I defer to you, Herb.
No, it's you, Herb.
Oh,
Nope, sorry, it's you, Herb.
okay. This question has come up to a lot of government agencies, and it has not been decided by labor management. It's been decided by management how the holiday will be celebrated with a view to the needs of the agency. This is not I don't think this is a democracy in the holiday, picking holidays. Okay, which holiday do you want? You want a holiday here and a holiday there? That should be decided by the board how this holiday would be decided. And I agree with Barbara. I think that a floating holiday would be the best thing to do in this case, and perhaps perhaps have a program concerning June 19th on that day, but keep the library open.
Thanks, Herb. Marcia? You're on mute.
Herb's suggestion is a very good one. As you know, I was very much in favor of June 9th, of this Juneteenth to be a holiday. I wasn't advocating for closing the library. I think a floating oh, gee whiz. Somebody should get that phone. I'm sorry. Hi, I have to call you back. I'm in the middle of a meeting. Okay, bye-bye. Sorry about that. I don't propose that the library be closed. I have no problem with it going to Labor Management Committee, as Barbara suggested. I think her suggestion to have a program on that day is an excellent one. And I'd like to know why Chris thinks it's difficult but not impossible to figure this out. I'm not understanding that, Tim.
So I think it wasn't that, I think it just wasn't, it's not difficult for our board to figure out for ourselves, but she was saying that there was no official guidance from the state on what that should be, was the issue. So
Can I make a statement?
Yes, please.
I'm fortunate that in the department I work with at the state that we have allowed people to have the day off. So I guess I would just like to make a motion that Juneteenth be celebrated in the form of a paid holiday, and that the library would be closed on that specific day to recognize the fact that slavery ended in 1865. It was a horrific thing that happened in our past. And I just think it's a good thing that we would do by shutting the library down and celebrating the fact that it ended.
Okay.
Motion by Peter. Is there a second?
I can go with that.
Motion by Marcia.
Yeah, I can go with that.
Excellent. Barbara, for discussion?
Yes. I don't see shutting down the library as being a benefit to the community. Somebody, I don't know who it was, mentioned that, you could have some great programming that day, but to just simply close the doors as a paid holiday, to me, doesn't serve the public well.
Can I add something to that?
Please do, Jason.
I'm leaning a little more towards Margaret's statement, because what I envision, and also with the state, like, or at least my agency, like it's a floater. And I know that people are going to be more aware of, like, what Juneteenth is. It's for me, it's something different. Like, it's a beautiful thing, like in the summertime, and it's a celebration. And I feel that we can be a part of that, by being open, by having programs, maybe having like some kind of like outdoor block party or something like that in the, in our newly sealed, parking lot, and, and still give, like, our employees, a floater or something. So I'm just happy that we're having this discussion, but I would appreciate, if we did some kind of programming. If we are closed on that day, it'd be great to, like, at least have like programming leading up to that if we're not going to be open.
Thank you, Jason. Phil.
That sounds great. If I know Albany has done some of those small parking lot street party kind of things, and if we were to put together something like that while making it a holiday for the staff, and you needed to find people to run it, I'm sure some other board members would love to do it too, but I'd happily donate some time to manning some tables or doing whatever needs to be done so that staff can have the day off and enjoy it as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree. Who was that? Phil?
Yes, that was Phil.
Yeah, I would volunteer as well.
Okay. So right now, there's a motion on the floor to suspend library services on Juneteenth and give staff a paid holiday. Is there further discussion or should we move to a vote?
Real quick, if the intent is for us to also try to have a community event with volunteers staffing it, does that need to be something that gets done in this? Or
No.
is that just something we can manage separately?
That is something that can be managed separately.
Then great.
Yeah.
Barbara.
I would like to see what the administration's opinion is. You know, we're sort of being hit with this. The floating holiday idea, I think, is much more flexible. Everybody is still getting a paid holiday, and they can choose to take that day off or not, depending upon their department heads. But to simply close the library, I would be against that. I certainly have no problems with a floating holiday.
So Tim, administration, how, you know, having a volunteer staff program while services are suspended and paid staff have a paid holiday, can that even work?
Okay, if that's one question, and then it seems to me like Barbara also asked if either I or Margaret had a preference between these two different ways. But to go to your question, Caitlin, I believe it's impractical while we're under construction. I think it's big-hearted and generous, and 2 board members have volunteered. But having some sort of block party in a building that's still under, or outside a building that's still under construction, I think it's noble. I think it'd be a great goal for 2022. I think it's unlikely to come together in a couple of months. And to Barbara's question, I'm really indifferent as to whether it's closed for one day or whether it's a floater. I think both, my goal in supporting the Juneteenth holiday is respect for history itself and also our African American population in the country. And I think both of those methods accomplish that. So, and they both have pros and cons as well.
Yeah, after hearing Peter Hubbard, I agree with him. I don't think it's merely, and I don't mean merely negatively, a question of commemorating the issue of slavery with respect to African Americans. I think it's a broader question for the whole society and not limited only to honoring African Americans and what happened on that date. It's a societal issue, and I think we make a statement if we close the library. It took 2 years to figure out that the folks were free, and that's a subject that impacts not only Black Americans but all Americans. And closing the library, I think, is a fitting tribute to recognize that fact. So I agree with Peter.
Richard.
I don't want to make any statements about the significance of the day. It certainly is a significant day, and I'm not downplaying that at all. This is a contractual and labor issue, and contractual and labor issues are best dealt with in contractual and labor context. The union is going to have some preferences about this. We're going to have some preferences about this. And I would suggest, although I do believe that closing the library is the wrong thing to do, it makes us lose the opportunity for education and celebration within a community institution. I think it's premature to discuss this until we've heard more from Chris and until we've talked to the union. I think we're being very hasty in making a decision. I realize it's coming up, but I think we need more information and discussion before we decide anything.
Thank you, Richard. I would agree with you. I'd like to have, you know, to find out what labor management thinks. And I agree with Jason that a floating holiday gives people the option to take off the day should they choose to celebrate. But having the library open allows us to be a part of the community celebration and to be a part of educating people. You know, I know on the subject, I could certainly use more, and I would enjoy attending something at the library. And per Tim's point, it is difficult to envision some sort of block party event this year. But having the library remain open this year sets a precedent that will allow us to do so next year. Whereas if we decide that the building, that services are suspended on Juneteenth now, it sets a precedent that it will remain doing so for the future. And it removes that option to be able to be a part of the community celebration. And the library is a part of the community in a big way. This could be a strong opportunity for us.
Yeah.
To
We can close the library and still have library programs around that date. So we're not foreclosed from having a program if the board chooses to have the library closed that day.
I heard.
Yes. Tim, I have a question for Tim. Has the anti-racism task force discussed the issue of Juneteenth at all and come to any conclusions?
Not in any substantial way, Herb. We at the Anti-Racism Task Force was formed. I don't know exactly when, but it was after the last June 19th. And so there've been some fleeting references to it, but nothing in particular in terms of a substantial discussion.
And this wasn't brought up by Mary Fellows at all, to the, rest of your committee?
Not to my recollection. There've been one meeting every 2 weeks for the last 6 or 8 months. But I know nothing has been decided about it at that group. It may have been discussed a little bit. I did miss one meeting out of all those, but I do not recall any substantial discussion about Juneteenth in that group.
And I have one other comment about this. If what we decide for this year won't necessarily go over to the next contract, because at the end of the contract, then we negotiate again, and Juneteenth would be an issue possibly for negotiation at that time. So that wouldn't be covered by this year because it's not in the contract that we have right now.
Excellent point, Herb. Barbara.
The point is, however, if you make a decision this year without meeting with labor management and just unilaterally make a decision, it does tend to send a precedent under PERB. So we know there's nobody objecting to doing the holiday. It's just, is it a closed situation or an open situation and a floating holiday? It has always been the intent of prior boards and the administration to keep our library open as much as possible. And I think, we have a certain number of closed holidays. I think July 4th, Labor Day, Memorial Day, help me out here, Tim. And the rest, I think, we are open to the public. So, as I said, I would strongly ask, I guess, Peter to reconsider. We are going to celebrate the holiday, but that it not be a closed library day, for our library.
I'd like to go to a vote soon. It seems like people know one way or the other. But I would like to just make a point. Whether or not you feel that the library should be open or closed, voting on this now removes labor management from the conversation. And this has been a tough year between board and staff. And if the board votes on this without getting their input, that sends a message to the staff. And I'm not sure that it would go over well, to be quite frank. And I know we don't have to, but I think for relationship's sake, between the staff and the board, that labor management should be a part of the conversation before the board takes a vote. Or before the board makes a decision, not takes a vote. Because that to me is something I'm also considering in this proposal. And is there further discussion or questions, or are people ready to move to a vote?
I would just ask one quick question of Tim before we vote, and I'm hoping that it passes. But have you heard reaction from a lot of staff that said, I don't think that we should close, or make it a paid holiday? Have you heard anything kind of like what Caitlin has mentioned, where staff would be extremely upset at us as a board if we voted to approve this holiday?
I have not. I think honestly, I give credit to Caitlin for trying to do things the right way. But I think honestly, the way it would come across to the staff is kind of kicking the can down the road and kind of going to labor management almost in an attempt not to celebrate the holiday. I think personally, the staff, if I'm able to speak for them, that's theoretical, but I think they'd appreciate a resolution one way or another. I do think labor management should meet. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but there have been a number of issues over the last 5 or 6 months that probably could be in a labor management committee meeting agenda. But I think the general staff support for the holiday is such. I wonder, I'm not a board member, but I wonder if the resolution could be amended in such a way as to say, we're considering it for this year and then subject to negotiation with labor management in subsequent years.
I would be willing to make that amendment.
Much as I appreciate staff input into this question, it's the board that makes policy, and we have to consider also the citizens of Guilderland, the citizens of Guilderland who use the library and want the library open.
Thank you, Herb. Barbara?
I'm trying to get an amendment to Peter's statement so that the staff would know that we certainly it is our intent to approve a holiday, be it a day off or a floating holiday, so that Tim's concern that he just expressed certainly would be alleviated. But I am very reluctant to just make this to support Peter's original motion that we immediately decide on a closed day, when, as Herb and others have pointed out, it has always been the goal of the library and administration to try to keep the library open as many days as we can. So maybe somebody else like Richard can help me out with an amendment here to Peter's motion, that it would read, instead of closing that day, is that it is our intent to grant a paid holiday for Juneteenth, and subject to input or to a future vote of the board as to whether it be a day off or a paid floating holiday.
I think that doesn't amend Peter's motion, but changes it completely. I'm not sure that an amendment in this case works. I think either the library is closed or the library is open for services.
Okay,
unless the amendment is by substitution.
Oh, you're saying, Herb, amendment by substitution.
Yeah, that could be done, and then would not necessarily have to be in accordance with the prior resolution.
I understand that. It might just be more straightforward to vote on the resolution on the floor, to know where the board goes next.
Okay, Caitlin, if Peter's a motion goes down, then we can make another
A new
motion
correct.
that would guarantee a holiday on that day. Okay, I get it.
Correct. See what I'm saying? Like, let's just keep it a little bit neater and vote on the motion on the floor. And then if that doesn't pass, then we can move forward.
Okay, we've got to do something though, since it's coming up, in the not too distant future.
Correct. We
Well-
have one more meeting for a decision to be made if it doesn't get made tonight.
Well,
What
that's
is
cutting
Peter's
it.
motion?
Peter's motion is to, and Peter, is it specific to June 19th, 2021? To close the holiday?
If that's going to help get this passed, I would be willing to accept that as a change.
Okay, so Peter's motion is to close the library on June 19th, 2021 and give staff a paid holiday in recognition of Juneteenth. Is that the motion you're putting forth, Peter?
That's fine.
For
Yes.
right now? Okay.
Yes.
And kick the policy down the line.
Correct.
No.
So we're making a decision for this year. And again, it'll have to be renegotiated in contracts going forward anyway. Herb, as you pointed out.
I have a question. The
Yes.
library is open for certain activities right now. That means, book return,
Yes.
people, okay,
Right.
so the library is not open to visitors inside. So what is the motion? Is the motion that the library
To
will be closed?
suspend services.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay. We're gonna go into a vote and see how this goes. And then we can go forward.
Caitlin, I'm sorry, can you read
Yes,
the motion one more time?
Yes, so the motion is to make June 19th, 2021 to suspend services and give staff a paid holiday in recognition of Juneteenth. Okay? So we're in a vote, and I remind people that when we're voting, it should be simply yes or no or abstain. And we'll go in. I'll try to keep the same order. Richard? Barbara?
No.
Marcia?
Was that me, Caitlin?
Yes, that was you.
I vote yes.
Noreen?
Abstain.
Phil?
I guess no.
Okay. Herb?
No.
Kathy?
Yes.
Jason?
No.
Caitlin, yes. Peter?
Yes.
4 in favor, 1 abstention. The vote does not pass. So I believe Barbara wants to make a motion to give staff a paid holiday or I don't know how you want to word this. Go for it.
The floating holiday, right?
Well, a floating holiday would mean that the library is open for services and we're making that decision now. Yes.
Yes.
Barbara, you're muted.
I make the motion that in recognition of Juneteenth, that we will maintain services at the library, yet provide a paid holiday for all employees in the form of a floating holiday.
What?
Tim has a question.
Yes.
I presume that would be full-time employees?
How are our other holidays done, Tim?
Sorry, I don't know. I'm gonna have to ask Margaret.
Usually it's only if a part-timer is scheduled to work that day. There are a lot of permutations for this, and I think some of the decisions you're trying to make are a little bit premature. The main thing is whether or not you want to acknowledge that day on that specific day or on a different day. Getting into floaters and who gets paid, let me just give you the example. This year, 2021, June 19th is a Saturday. Our full staff does not work on a Saturday. So who do you intend to pay for that day? Everyone, whether they're scheduled to work or not, or just the people who are scheduled to work that day? And that's just the tip of the iceberg. This really needs further discussion.
Margaret, how do we pay people like for Veterans Day or May 30th? Is it just if you're scheduled to work that day? I thought everybody did that.
We have no floaters anymore. You have to decide what kind of holiday you want this to be. For example, Labor Day is a holiday. Easter, we're closed, but it's not a holiday. The library is just closed for observance purposes. So, like I said, this is going to take longer than 30 minutes to discuss and reach closure on.
Okay, how about Veterans Day versus?
Barbara, I don't necessarily want to get in the weeds and the semantics on this. It seems like this needs to be a labor management committee meeting because that first motion did not pass. So now it seems like there are details that have to get worked out since we decided not to suspend services for the holiday.
What about a motion?
Hold on. I got a lot of people coming in at once. Kathy, then Richard.
I make a motion that we treat June 19th the same as we treat Martin Luther King Day.
Second it.
Okay, motion to treat.
Is that a substitute motion for Barbara's motion?
No, mine was never seconded.
Barbara's was never seconded. So I have a motion by Kathy and a second by Peter on treating Juneteenth like Martin Luther King Day. Margaret, can you establish to the board what that is?
What that is?
I don't think we're closed on Martin. I have to look at the CSA. I don't have the contract right in front of me. Let me see if I can find it.
Okay, take your time. I just want to point out it's Martin Luther King Day always falls on a Monday. June 19th will move around the week, and that changes it in terms of its ability to be treated like Martin Luther King Day.
And we are closed on Martin Luther King.
Floaters would apply to everybody because it's not a specific day. So
we no longer award floaters.
Herb, the library doesn't do that. There are no floating holidays for staff.
Unless we make one.
Right, we certainly could do that if we wanted to. Why did we eliminate them, Margaret?
The tracking system is cumbersome. We never put a time limit on how long it takes for them to spend it. And so people would accumulate them and spend them all at once, and it got really difficult to deal with and track.
Well, Jason had mentioned, that you'd have to take it within that pay period. Is that a possibility?
Again, that needs, I think that's a question for negotiation. Once you decide whether or not it's a holiday and whether it's a paid holiday or an unpaid holiday, then you go into negotiation and decide how it is you want that handled.
Okay, so the best thing right now for us to do, I think everybody knows that we want it to be a paid holiday. Let it go to labor management. We'll come back in May and make a final determination.
Well, but I think if we want to be a paid holiday, then it should just be a paid holiday. It should be, I mean, if not Martin Luther King Day, then treat it like Labor Day. I mean, why would you do something?
Labor Day is always a Monday. Labor Day always falls on a Monday, and it's observed on a Monday. Juneteenth this year, as I said, is on a Saturday, which is a little bit different.
Well, why not July 4th then? I mean, July 4th is not always on the same day of the week.
And not all part-time employees get paid for a holiday. They get 3 4-hour shifts of holiday time per year per contract. So again, how are you going to treat that holiday for a part-timer versus a full-timer? And that gets contractual agreement.
Thank you, Richard.
I think Margaret is trying very hard to tell us that there are implications here.
Right.
And I'm not sure that we're listening to her. I tried to say the same thing, to say that this has contractual implications and it may involve us in giveaways and takebacks and all kinds of other things that should be discussed with the union and in depth before we make a decision like this. It only seems like one day for 1 year, but I think it's got bigger implications. And out of respect for Margaret and Tim, who have to deal with the implications and the bookkeeping and the payroll, I think we deserve to take some time to have this explored. So I'm not sure if a motion to table is okay in the midst of another motion, but I would move that we table this to the next meeting.
Let's vote on the motion on the floor, and then see where we're at. There's a motion on the floor to treat Juneteenth like Martin Luther King Day.
May I make a comment?
Please.
I don't like that. I don't like that wording at all. Not at all.
Noted. But that is the motion on the floor.
Okay.
Let's go into a vote. We'll vote on the motion on the floor, and then we'll move forward. Richard. No. Barbara.
No.
Marcia.
No.
Noreen.
I'm sorry to ask you again, can you please, there's been a lot of conversation. Can you please state the motion again?
The motion is to treat Juneteenth the same as Martin Luther King Day in terms of a holiday for staff.
I abstain.
Phil.
No.
Herb.
No.
Kathy.
Yes.
Jason.
No.
Caitlin, no. Peter.
Yes.
So with only 2 in favor and 1 abstention, and 7 against, the motion does not pass. Richard, do you have a motion to have this go to labor management?
I have a motion to table this issue, have labor management meet and come up with a recommendation, and if at all possible, have this resolved in time for Juneteenth 2021.
Second.
Okay. Does someone want to second it? Do we need a motion for this, or do we all just agree that this goes to labor management at this point?
You need a motion.
Okay.
We need a motion. So there is a motion by Richard. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
So I've got Noreen on the second to table the conversation, to have it go to labor management, and have a decision made by the board before June 19th.
If possible.
May I make a small amendment to that?
You can make an amendment.
Yeah, I think it should be prefaced by the fact that the board recognizes the importance of the day and refers it to labor management.
Debatable.
I'm sorry?
A motion to table is not debatable.
Okay, a motion to table is not debatable.
I'm not debating it. I'm going to amend it.
Herb,
I'll do it any way you like.
I don't think you can amend the motion to table.
Stands by itself.
Then I would suggest a simple statement. It doesn't have to be attached to this. But I'd like to be on the record that the board recognizes the importance of the day and its significance.
Marcia, why don't you move that after we vote on the table?
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
Okay, so we're gonna make some votes here on tabling this and having it go to labor management. Richard.
Yes.
Barbara.
Yes.
Marcia.
Yes.
Noreen.
Yes.
Phil.
Yes.
Herb. Kathy,
No.
Jason,
Yes.
Caitlin, yes. Peter,
Yes.
nine in favor, one against. So that passes. The conversation on Juneteenth as a holiday is tabled. Marcia, I know you want to make a motion about the significance of the holiday.
Yeah.
I would think what I would like, and this is up to you, to write up something eloquent and purposeful to make at perhaps the June meeting, which is on the 18th of June, or I'm sorry, yeah. No, the 17th of June is our June meeting, and to present the motion then in the month of June, 2 days before Juneteenth. But that, of course, is your call. I just wanted to let you know on the timing of that.
Now, I understand, Caitlin. My issue is that the minutes will reflect the fact that we're tabling the matter. We're tabling the issue until the next meeting. But I would still like to have something on record that recognizes that the board, I mean, what we're grappling with is how to deal with this on a going forward basis as to whether or not it's a paid holiday and the library is closed and services are suspended, or it's a floating holiday, which is also paid at the discretion of the employee.
So Marcia, the minutes will reflect that we voted on this issue, that we had 3 motions and votes on this. And so that in itself shows the significance of what we're trying to accomplish and what we're wrestling with. So I would say that at this point is sufficient.
I'll defer to you, Caitlin. That's fine. I'll defer to you, Caitlin.
But I want to circle back to a June motion with you.
Okay.
Is there new business? Tim?
You know, if I could bring up new business and ask that we talk about it somewhere else, that would be great. But I just respectfully would like to get some response to the idea of having a cafe RFP from someone on the board. I don't think it's appropriate for me to issue it on my own. So it's obviously not an issue we can decide tonight, but I would recommend that we consider putting together an ad hoc committee of 3 board members.
Would that fall under the purview of the design and steering committee, since the cafe is a new addition as part of the construction project?
You could say that. It is hard to get, I suppose I'm going to be in trouble here, but it's hard to get all 3 members of that committee to come to one of their meetings. So it would be a solution, an appropriate solution, but not really one that would work.
If I can say, having served on that committee, on Kathy's behalf, they have an awful lot on their plate. I just, for one, would volunteer to be on an ad hoc group to help you. If that's Caitlin's pleasure and the pleasure of the board.
Are there other volunteers to serve on an ad hoc committee to work on an RFP for the cafe?
I nominate Peter.
Yeah, I'd like to volunteer Pete.
Definitely, it's his baby.
Peter, are you available to serve on an ad hoc committee for a cafe RFP?
For you, absolutely. Yep.
All right, so we have Richard and we have Peter. I need one more.
I will serve as the chair of the design committee.
And Kathy will be involved since she is on the design committee. Peter, will you chair the committee?
Can I think about that?
For about 30 seconds until there's a motion to create ad hoc committee for the cafe RFP consisting of Peter Hubbard as the chair, Richard Rubin, and Kathy Barber.
I can't believe I'm going to do this, but I'll say yes. This will be the first time in all my service being a chair, or second.
I was like, it better not be your first, Peter. Thank you. Thank you tremendously. So I don't usually do this, but I will make that motion and put it forth before you guys, since I usually make the committees. So an ad hoc committee for the Cafe RFP consisting of Peter Hubbard as the chair, Kathy Barber, and Richard Rubin. Is there a second?
Do we have to vote on it, or don't you have the authority to appoint ad hoc committees?
I don't think that I do. No, a board approval, but I have a second from Phil, so I will take that
Okay.
and roll into. Yeah, everybody wants this, I think, to go forward. Is there discussion? Other than to say thank you very much to the volunteers, especially to Peter. Okay, a vote. Richard Rubin. Yes. Barbara.
Yes.
Marcia.
Yes.
Noreen.
Yes.
Phil.
Yes.
Herb.
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
Jason.
Yes.
Caitlin. Yes. And Peter.
Yes.
Unanimous at 8:53. All right, so minutes of the regular business meeting from March 18th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve? Barbara, is there a second? Peter, I'm sorry, nope, that's Phil. I have an abstention from Jason, but other than that, I believe everyone can vote. So Richard? Richard? Yes. Okay, I got it. Barbara? Yes. Marcia?
Yes.
Doreen?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Herb?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Caitlin? Yes. And Peter?
Yes.
So 9 in favor, 1 abstention, passes at 8:54. Luann, is there other public input?
No public input at this time.
Thank you, Luann.
You're welcome.
So on your minutes, or I'm sorry, on your agenda, it says executive session personnel action. I've discussed this with Tim. The personnel actions are straightforward as presented. There's no other discussion, and per emails we previously had with Chris Lanchanton, these votes should take place in public meeting. And if no one is opposed, I will read them, and then if someone feels there needs to be an executive session, but Tim has told me there's nothing regarding either of these actions that would warrant moving into executive session. So the 2 actions are to approve the retirement of Sandy Tabor, full-time librarian 1 in Programming and Public Services Department, effective April 23rd, 2021, and accept the resignation of William Bill West, a part-time custodial worker in Maintenance Department, effective April 30th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve the personnel actions as presented? Phil, is there a second?
Second.
Marcia. All right. Is there discussion? Noreen, yes.
I just quickly wanted to say that Sandy Tabor will be very missed. She is an excellent librarian in the children's section, and she has been just an immense support and just a great person for my kids to get to know in the children's department. And I'm very sad to hear that she's retiring.
Thank you, Noreen. Yeah, and right before we have a glorious children's section. But I can understand. So let's head into a vote on accepting these personnel actions. Richard?
Yes.
Yes. Barbara? Yes. Marcia?
Yes.
Noreen?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Herb?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Caitlin? Yes. Peter?
Yes.
Thank you all so very much. And that brings us, I believe, to P. Oh, Tim?
Did I miss the approval of the minutes, item L?
You did.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. So we're at P. If someone wants to go ahead and start that. It's a motion to adjourn. Who wants to make it?
So moved.
Oh, yeah, there I see the hands. I see Jason and Barbara. Motion by Jason to adjourn, second by Barbara. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much. Have a very good evening. Meeting is adjourned at 8:57.
Thank you for your patience, Caitlin.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.